Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Jason Caldwell always believed he knew his wife. 12 years of marriage had built that quiet certainty, that silent trust that comes from sharing life with someone day after day. He was 38, worked as an operations manager at a logistics company in Denver, and his routine was comfortably predictable, the kind most long-term marriages eventually settle into. Amanda, his 36-year-old wife, was a nutritionist who saw clients at her own private practice and had always seemed content with the life they'd built together. Lily, their 8-year-old daughter, was the center of everything, a bright girl with curly brown hair and an easy smile who loved drawing and had just made her school's soccer team. Their house sat in a quiet suburban neighborhood with a well-kept lawn and neighbors who waved every morning. It was an ordinary life, without major upheavals, and Jason never imagined that could be a problem, until that Tuesday night over dinner. Lily was finishing her mac and cheese when Amanda dropped the bomb. It wasn't dramatic, and there was no build-up. She simply said, while absent-mindedly stirring the salad on her plate, that she needed some time. Jason was chewing a piece of chicken when he heard the words and took a few seconds to process them. Amanda went on, now looking directly at him with an expression that tried to seem casual but carried something rehearsed. She said she needed a week alone, without him, without Lily, just herself. She used words like self-discovery, reflection, thinking about her life. Jason swallowed the chicken with difficulty and felt a strange discomfort settle in his stomach. Lily asked if Mommy was going away, and Amanda smiled at her daughter with that automatic tenderness mothers have, saying yes, she was going to a beautiful place in the mountains to rest. Jason watched the scene in silence, trying to figure out where this had come from. Amanda had never mentioned feeling smothered or complained about needing space. In recent months, it was true, she'd occasionally talked about monotony, about how life felt like it was on autopilot, but Jason had taken those as normal venting, not as a prelude to this. Later, after Lily was already in bed, Jason questioned Amanda more seriously. They were in the living room, she on the couch scrolling through her phone, he standing, trying not to seem controlling but genuinely worried. He asked if everything was okay between them, if he'd done something wrong, if there was a problem he wasn't seeing. Amanda sighed in that tired way that always made Jason feel guilty for asking, and said it wasn't about them, it was about her. She said she'd lost herself a bit in the roles of wife and mother, that she no longer knew who Amanda was outside those labels. Jason didn't know what to say. He wanted to be understanding, wanted to show he was a modern husband who respected personal space, so he ended up agreeing. Amanda seemed relieved, even smiled genuinely for the first time that night, and said she'd be staying at a rented cabin in the Rocky Mountains, just a week, nothing serious. She'd even planned the dates, the coming Friday. Jason felt a twinge of discomfort realizing she'd arranged everything without consulting him, but he pushed the feeling down and said it was fine, he hoped she'd find what she was looking for. The following days were strangely unsettling in a way Jason couldn't quite name. Amanda seemed different, more animated, almost effervescent. She started going to the gym every day, whereas before she'd only gone twice a week, and came home flushed and smiling, smelling of floral shampoo with that post-workout sparkle in her eyes. Jason tried not to read too much into it, but something nagged at him, an unease he couldn't shake. On Wednesday, Amanda came home with shopping bags from expensive stores. When Jason went upstairs to change after work, he saw new clothes scattered across the bed. There were tight dresses, low-cut blouses, black lace lingerie he'd never seen before. He casually remarked that she was buying nice clothes to spend alone in a cabin, and Amanda laughed, saying she wanted to feel good about herself, that it was part of reconnecting. Jason nodded, but his discomfort grew. On Thursday night, he noticed Amanda in the bathroom applying expensive moisturizer to her legs, doing the full-body waxing she only ever did for special occasions, and the alarm in Jason's head started ringing louder. It all fell apart that same Thursday, around 10 at night. Amanda had gone to shower and left her phone on the living room coffee table. Jason was watching a basketball game without really paying attention when her phone buzzed. Normally, he wouldn't have looked. They'd always had privacy, always trusted each other. But something about that week, all that accumulated strangeness, made Jason glance at the glowing screen. The message was right there, clear and brutal in the notification preview. Brad. The name meant nothing to Jason, but the words that followed meant everything. Can't wait for tomorrow, babe. A whole week just us. Your husband really is a sucker. Jason felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He stared at the screen, waiting for the words to change, for it all to be some kind of mistake or cruel joke. The phone locked, and Jason stood there holding it, his heart pounding so hard he could hear his own pulse. He looked toward the stairs, hearing the shower running upstairs, Amanda humming a tune. Anger rose slowly, a hot wave moving from his stomach to his chest, then his throat. Jason knew her phone password. They'd always known each other's passwords, it was one of those transparency pacts couples make. With trembling hands, he unlocked the device and opened the messaging app. He had to see, had to know. The conversations with Brad went back weeks, maybe months. Jason scrolled up, reading message after message, each one a different kind of stab. Brad was the gym's personal trainer, the guy Amanda had casually mentioned a few times, saying he was helping her build a better workout routine. Jason had never thought anything of it. Now, reading the messages, everything was brutally clear: inside jokes, physical compliments, innuendos that grew less subtle over time. And then the plans. That week off wasn't for self-discovery, it was to spend time with Brad at a cabin he'd rented. There were photos exchanged between them, images Jason wished he hadn't seen but couldn't stop looking at. There were conversations about how excited Amanda was, how great it would be to be together without worries. And there were jokes about Jason, plenty of them. Brad calling him a sucker, blind, a boring husband who couldn't satisfy his wife anymore. Amanda laughing, agreeing, saying Jason would never suspect a thing because he trusted her too much. The shower shut off upstairs, and Jason, acting purely on instinct, took photos of her phone screen with his own device, screenshots of the most incriminating messages, the photos, the detailed plans. Then he placed Amanda's phone exactly where it had been and went to the office he sometimes used as a home workspace. He closed the door, sat in his chair, and let reality crash over him like an avalanche. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of building a life together, of waking up beside her every morning, and it had all been a lie. No, Jason corrected himself mentally, it hadn't all been a lie. It had been real once. But now it was false, and she was planning to spend an entire week with another man while he, the sucker, took care of their daughter and waited at home believing his wife was searching for herself. Jason didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the office, door locked, researching on his phone. He found the cabin's address in the messages, a secluded spot 3 hours from Denver. He saw photos of the place, a rustic but cozy cottage surrounded by pines and mountains. He thought about calling Amanda right then, going upstairs and confronting her in bed, waking Lily and leaving the house. But he did none of that. Jason was methodical, he always had been. He worked in logistics, in planning, in thinking 3 steps ahead. So he thought. He thought all night. By the time sunlight began filtering through the office window, Jason had a plan. He wouldn't stop Amanda from leaving. He'd let her walk out the door, smile and say goodbye, act like nothing was wrong. And then he'd follow her. He'd confront them both together, make Amanda look him in the eye when she realized the sucker wasn't so gullible after all. More importantly, he'd have witnesses, irrefutable proof, everything documented for the divorce he was already mentally preparing for. On Friday morning, Jason left the office when he heard Amanda wake up. He pretended he'd slept on the couch because he'd been watching the game and dozed off. She believed him, or pretended to, and went to make coffee. Lily came downstairs in her pajamas, hair messy, and jumped into her dad's lap asking for pancakes. Jason made pancakes, served coffee, acted like it was just another normal day. Amanda was radiant, dressed up, her suitcase already by the door. She wore tight jeans, a low-cut blouse, light but carefully applied makeup. She was beautiful, Jason noticed with a pang in his chest, beautiful for another man. Lily was sad when her mom said she'd be away for a week, but Amanda promised to bring a gift, and the girl accepted it with the easy resilience of children. Around 9 that morning, Amanda gave Jason a quick kiss on the cheek, a longer one on Lily, grabbed her suitcase, and left. Jason went to the window and watched her car disappear down the street. He felt Lily take his hand and look down into those brown eyes so much like his own. The girl asked if everything was okay, and Jason smiled, saying yes, it was all fine. But it wasn't. As soon as Amanda left, Jason began executing his plan. First, he called his brother. Mark was a police officer, 2 years older, with a solid marriage, and had always been someone Jason could count on. He told him everything, word for word, and Mark stayed silent for a long moment before saying Jason better be absolutely sure. Jason sent the screenshots, and he heard his brother mutter a quiet curse as he read them. Mark said Jason had more than enough proof for an uncomplicated divorce, he could call a lawyer Monday and end it without drama. But Jason said he wanted to confront them, that he needed to do this. Mark tried to talk him out of it, warned it could go wrong, could get ugly, but Jason had already made up his mind. After hanging up, he called his mother-in-law. Donna adored her granddaughter, and Jason had a good relationship with her, even if he sometimes found her a bit too nosy. He said a last-minute work trip had come up, an urgent issue at a warehouse outside the city, and asked if she could pick Lily up from school and keep her until Sunday. Donna loved the idea, said she'd take her granddaughter shopping and get their nails done together. Jason thanked her, knowing he was using his mother-in-law but not caring much at that moment. By 11 that morning, Jason was already on the road. He'd tossed a backpack with a few clothes into the back seat, programmed the GPS to the cabin's address, and was driving toward the Rocky Mountains. The anger had given way to a strange calm, almost surgical. Jason knew what he was going to do. He knew he'd end the marriage that day, destroy any chance of reconciliation, and oddly, he was at peace with it. He no longer wanted to live with someone capable of what Amanda was doing. He didn't want to be the sucker Brad thought he was. He wanted dignity, he wanted truth, and he'd find both at that cabin. The drive took 3 hours, winding roads climbing into the mountains, beautiful scenery Jason barely registered. He stopped once to refuel and buy a sandwich he couldn't bring himself to eat. By the time he reached the cabin area, it was past 1 in the afternoon. He found the place easily, it matched the photos exactly. Amanda's car was parked out front next to a black Ford pickup Jason assumed was Brad's. He parked his own car hidden about 50 yards ahead on a dirt road curve, where trees concealed the vehicle. He didn't want them to see him, not yet. Jason waited until dawn. He stayed in the car, reclining the seat, dozing in short, restless bursts, waking every time he heard a sound. Through the window, he saw lights on in the cabin, shadows moving behind the curtains. At some point, the lights went out, and Jason imagined the two of them lying together, Amanda in Brad's arms, laughing, satisfied, not thinking about the husband or daughter they'd left behind. Anger returned, hot and intense, but Jason held it tightly. It wasn't time to lose control. When the sun began to rise, lighting the mountain peaks with that cold golden hue of morning, Jason got out of the car. He was stiff, cold, but determined. He walked to the cabin, gravel crunching under his boots. It was 7 a.m. on Saturday. He climbed the wooden porch steps and knocked on the door, 3 firm, decisive knocks. He heard movement inside, shuffling footsteps, someone grumbling. The door opened, and Brad appeared, shirtless, sleepy-eyed, hair messy. He was younger than Jason had imagined, maybe 30, with the defined physique of someone who lived at the gym and a tattoo on his left arm. The man blinked, confused, and said something like, "Who are you?" "The sucker husband," Jason replied, pushing the door firmly and stepping inside. The cabin was small, one open space with a kitchen, living area, and a door leading to the bedroom. It smelled of coffee and something else Jason preferred not to identify. Brad stepped back, still processing what was happening, and that's when Amanda appeared from the bedroom door. She wore a white nightgown, the lace one from the shopping bags, and her face cycled through 5 different expressions in 2 seconds when she saw Jason: surprise, shock, fear, guilt, and finally pure panic. She said his name, Jason, drawn out and shrill, as if she couldn't believe he was there. Jason looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger. This wasn't the woman he'd married, not Lily's mother, just someone he didn't know and maybe never had. Brad had regained some composure and started speaking, something about Jason not being allowed to trespass, but Jason cut him off with a look. He said, with a calm that surprised even himself, that Brad should stay quiet unless he wanted things to get worse than they already were. The man shut his mouth. Jason turned to Amanda. Her eyes were wide, her hands shaking, and she tried to step toward him, but Jason raised his hand, signaling her to stop. He said he didn't want apologies, didn't want explanations, didn't want to hear anything she had to say. He told her he'd seen the messages, knew everything, had spent the whole night in his car waiting for the right moment to do this. Amanda started crying, not the delicate movie kind, but the ugly, desperate sobbing of someone who knows they've lost everything. She said she could explain, that it wasn't what it looked like, and Jason laughed. It was a bitter laugh, completely humorless, echoing strangely in the silent cabin. It wasn't what it looked like, he said. It wasn't a week planned with your lover while the sucker husband stayed home taking care of your daughter? Amanda tried to speak again, but Jason cut her off, his voice rising for the first time. He said she'd asked for a week off, looked him in the eye and lied, kissed Lily goodbye knowing exactly what she was about to do, and that was unforgivable. He asked what 12 years of marriage, 12 years of trust, had been thrown away for: a personal trainer? A thrill? A little fun? Brad tried to intervene, saying Jason didn't understand, that Amanda had been unhappy for years, that the marriage had been dead. Jason turned to him so fast the man instinctively stepped back. He told Brad not to talk about his marriage, not to talk about Amanda as if he knew her, because sleeping with another man's wife for a few weeks didn't give him the right to judge anything. He said Brad was just a coward who had the guts to seduce a married woman but not the courage to face the consequences when her husband showed up. Brad flushed red, jaw muscles tensing, but said nothing. Jason turned his attention back to Amanda. He said he'd come here because he needed her to see the exact moment it all ended, needed her to know he was aware, he wasn't the idiot she and Brad thought he was. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures, of the cabin, of the two of them, of Amanda's suitcase still open in the bedroom with her new clothes scattered around. Amanda screamed at him to stop, tried to grab the phone, but Jason moved away. He said he needed proof, his lawyer would love these photos, the divorce judge would see exactly who Amanda Caldwell really was. Amanda collapsed, literally dropped to her knees on the cabin's wooden floor, sobbing, begging Jason to wait, to talk, not to do this. She said she loved him, that she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to fix it. Jason looked down at her, vulnerable and shattered, and felt nothing but cold emptiness. He told her she didn't love him, if she did, she wouldn't be here. Love wasn't this. He said she'd made her choice when she planned that week, bought those clothes, sent those messages calling her husband a sucker. Now he was making his choice. He glanced at Brad, who stood against the wall with arms crossed, looking uncomfortable but trying to hold on to some macho posture. Jason told him he could keep Amanda if he wanted, she was free now, truly free. He hoped they'd be very happy together, because it was going to cost them both dearly. Amanda would pay with custody of Lily, Brad, with his conscience. Jason turned to leave, and Amanda staggered to her feet, ran after him, grabbed his arm with both hands. She pleaded, repeated his name over and over, said she'd do anything. Jason gently but firmly pulled away and said just one thing before opening the door. She'd asked for a week off, and he was giving her what she wanted, but not a week. Lifetime freedom. He walked out and down the porch steps. He heard Amanda scream his name, heard her run out of the cabin barefoot, but he didn't look back. He got in the car, started the engine, and drove away. The drive back to Denver was a blur. Jason doesn't remember much, just driving on autopilot, mind blank, body tense. He stopped at a roadside diner and finally managed to eat something, a burger that tasted like cardboard but which he forced down. He thought about Lily, about how he'd tell his daughter her mom wouldn't be living with them anymore, and felt such a tightness in his chest he had to stop eating and take several deep breaths. But he didn't turn back. On Monday morning, Jason sat in a lawyer's office. He'd Googled late Sunday night and found one specializing in divorce with excellent reviews. The lawyer, a man in his mid-50s named Richard Sterling, listened to the whole story, reviewed all the evidence, the photos, the messages, and said Jason had a solid case. Proven adultery, potential witnesses, photographic evidence. Sterling said they could get a quick separation and that Jason had a strong chance of primary custody of Lily, especially if they could show Amanda had prioritized her affair over her daughter's well-being. Jason signed the papers that same day. The filing was submitted on Tuesday. Amanda tried to return home Monday night. Jason had changed the locks on Sunday, a triple-rate emergency service that was worth every penny. She pounded on the door, rang the bell insistently, called his phone dozens of times. Jason didn't answer. He simply took Lily, who was frightened by the noise, upstairs to her room and turned on the TV to drown out her mother's shouts. When Amanda finally gave up and left, Jason looked through the side window and saw her sitting in the car, crying at the wheel. He felt a flicker of something that might have been pity, but it was too small to change anything. Lily asked where Mommy would sleep, and Jason told her Mommy had found another place to stay, that they'd talk about everything soon. The girl didn't understand, but it was late and she was tired, so she didn't ask again. On Tuesday, Amanda called from her mother's house. Donna had found out everything. Jason had sent her the proof too, knowing his mother-in-law needed to know who Lily had spent Friday with. Donna was a practicing Catholic, conservative, with strong opinions about marriage and fidelity. When she saw proof of her daughter's affair, she cut ties. She told Amanda she'd raised her better than that she was ashamed, and that she wouldn't speak to her until Amanda got her life in order. Amanda stayed at her mother's for 2 days before being practically kicked out. She ended up in a cheap motel on Denver's outskirts. Brad vanished 2 weeks later. Jason later learned, through his brother, who discreetly investigated, that Brad had been pressured by the gym where he worked. Some client had discovered the affair and spread the word, and the trainer's reputation had tanked. He was fired, tried staying with Amanda for a few days, but when he realized she came with too much baggage, he broke things off by text and blocked her everywhere. Amanda tried contacting Jason through her lawyer, requesting a meeting to discuss reconciliation. Jason refused. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Sterling was relentless. He presented all the evidence in court, called Mark as a character witness for Jason, and built a solid case showing Amanda had prioritized an adulterous affair over her family. Amanda's lawyer, a young woman who seemed uncomfortable with the situation, tried arguing the marriage had been troubled and that Amanda deserved shared custody, but the facts were too clear. The judge, a stern 60-year-old woman, had no patience for excuses. Jason was granted primary custody of Lily. Amanda would have supervised visitation, 2 afternoons a week, until she demonstrated enough emotional stability to be alone with her daughter. The consequences spread like falling dominoes. Amanda lost clients at her practice. In a small city, a nutritionist's livelihood depends on reputation, and hers was destroyed. Someone had spread the story, maybe a friend of Jason's, maybe a client who was also connected to someone else. Either way, within weeks, Amanda watched her appointment calendar empty out. She tried to hold on, but costs were too high for the income she had left. She closed her office in March, 3 months after everything exploded. She started doing online consultations, trying to build a client base outside Denver, but it was difficult and paid little. Their mutual friends split sides. Some tried staying neutral at first, but Jason had the proof, had the truth on his side, and neutrality became impossible. Most sided with Jason. Amanda found herself increasingly isolated, living in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood, freelancing to survive, seeing her daughter twice a week under the watchful eye of a social worker who took notes and reported back to the court. Lily asked questions Jason answered with as much honesty as an 8-year-old could handle. He told her mommy and daddy wouldn't live together anymore, that sometimes adults make big mistakes, and that he and Lily would be okay together. The girl cried some nights, missed her mom, but kids are resilient, and slowly, she adjusted to the new reality. Jason rebuilt himself too, but differently. He had his own sleepless nights, moments of anger and sadness, therapy sessions recommended by his brother. But there was something liberating about living in truth, about no longer having to trust blindly, about knowing exactly where he stood. Work helped. He'd been promoted in April, taking on a regional role that increased his salary and brought new challenges. Lily was doing well in school, even improving her math grades. In June, 5 months after the cabin confrontation, Jason met Sarah. She was a colleague of a friend, an elementary school teacher, also divorced, no kids. They were introduced at a barbecue and talked for hours. Sarah was kind, had a dry sense of humor that made Jason laugh genuinely, and when he told her about the divorce, she listened without judgment and simply said he'd done what he needed to do. They started dating, nothing rushed, nothing too intense, just dinners, walks, occasional movies. Lily met Sarah in August, and the two clicked instantly. The teacher had a natural way with kids, played with Lily, helped with homework, never tried to replace her mom but gradually became an important presence. Amanda saw it all through social media. She hadn't blocked Jason yet. She saw photos of him happy with another woman, Lily smiling at a picnic with Sarah holding a basket. Something inside her broke seeing that. She tried contacting him one last time, sent a long, desperate message through her lawyer, begging for another chance, saying she'd changed, learned her lesson, would never do it again. Jason didn't even reply. Sterling simply filed the message away in the case. In October, the divorce was finalized. Jason was free, on paper and in practice. Amanda was free too, but her freedom came with a price she'd never imagined paying. Donna, her mother, eventually reconnected after much insistence from Amanda, but their relationship was never the same. Brad had reportedly moved to another state, trying to start over far from the scandal. Amanda remained alone, living in her small apartment, taking whatever work she could find, seeing her daughter 2 afternoons a week and crying on the drive home every time. The irony wasn't lost on Jason one November night as he sat on the couch with Sarah beside him watching a movie, Lily asleep in her room. Amanda had asked for a week off, to reconnect with herself, feel excitement, escape the monotony of marriage. Jason had given her exactly that, lifetime freedom. But while he'd used that freedom to rebuild himself, become a better father, and find someone who respected him, Amanda had discovered that freedom without responsibility, without consequence, was just loneliness. She'd traded a stable life for a week of fantasy, and the price had been losing everything that truly mattered. Jason no longer felt anger. He no longer felt pain. He felt only a quiet peace, the calm of someone who'd weathered the storm and emerged on the other side whole, stronger, wiser. He'd given Amanda the freedom she asked for, but in the end, it was he who had truly been set free. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.